I think if we've seen one thing today, that actually hydrocarbon release reduction and ultimately prevention isn't just the role of the duty holder. It's, with Petrofac and Expro playing their part, we see the role of an O&M, an E&C contractor, but also of our sort of equipment suppliers and supply chain. When we started this journey 2 or 3 years ago, it was very much operator-led. I think today shows that this is not the responsibility of operators on their own, and we need to understand that and continue to put that message out. I think also the involvement in all 3 good practice presentations of the workforce and leadership, and just how much they went to influence that. So any questions from the floor for our team? Just one down here, Izzy. Is it on? Nope.
Hello.
There we go.
George Anderson, OIM Brent Charlie. Just a couple of questions for Peter, with more observations. Extended turnarounds. I won't use the term shutdown. Brent Charlie just come through a 2-year major engineering upgrade, and a couple of things we found is, first on the audits, I think that's a very valuable finding. We found that if we'd done more audits on such things as flange makeup, we'd have picked up issues before we got towards the end, and we had to do a great deal of rework to confirm documentation and so on. Competency was another issue that we picked up on, that over a 2-year period you can have changes of personnel, so it's another thing that should be part of that start-up procedure, as you may have people who are not fully competent on an operating plant. And the other one is a plant that's been down for that amount of time, even though it's not been worked on, as you build the pressure up, you can have stem seals, equipment seals that have deteriorated over that period of time. So it's just findings from the Brent Charlie extended turnaround.
Yeah. Do you want to add anything to that, Peter? Just in terms of long term?
I think I can only agree with you, really.
Yep.
That's going beyond a turnaround duration almost, and we've some experience of similar issues in BP. I guess my ultimate reflection is once you're getting into turnarounds or major projects that have had a plant down for months, and in your case even years, it's actually getting more akin to a commissioning exercise than it is an old-fashioned turnaround. So I'd completely agree that the issues that you talk about are all totally valid, and I think it's just increasing one's restart assurance requirements and ever escalating them to make sure they're fit for purpose for the scenario that you find themselves in.
Okay. Another question. Emma?
Hi, it's Stuart Davison, Talisman Energy. So I've got another question for Peter. So a lot of the stuff you've been doing looks like internal BP stuff. So my question really is, how much of the detail do you think that BP will be able to share? Because I think most of us work with the same kind of building blocks that you've got, but the devil's in the detail, as they say. So I'm just curious how much you're going to be able to share.
The system that we've put in place that I've described this morning is so far applied within BP in the North Sea. We're obviously at the moment looking to see how we standardise application across BP globally. So that's very much work in progress. In terms of sharing through STEP, I know that there'll be some conversations after this in terms of how much we can share. Very happy to talk on a one-on-one basis, and catch you at the break and we can talk through some further details. But I'm quite sure the commitment will be there to find ways that allow us to share. I think the observation you make is very valid, though, that there's not much new in this. I think if any theme has come out of today for me, it is around commitment top down in the company. whichever company we're talking about, and also workforce engagement. The tools we're using, I'm sure, will be very similar in all the companies. It is, you know, the secret for me is making sure we are truly, truly rigorous in application of those tools, and we're getting what we think we're getting, and we're not getting a discrepancy, you know, in terms of what's being achieved.
Any other questions? Yep, one here. Oh, sorry, Ian. Yeah.
Ian Buchan from GDF Suez. Another quick question for Peter. Can you just clarify how your new restart assurance process fits alongside your safe isolation and reinstatement of plant process?
It very much complements it. The restart assurance checklist actually sits within our safe isolation and reinstatement process. That is designed to be applicable in any situation, of course, including isolation within a live plant during normal operation. So the restart assurance process, or the TAR restart assurance process that we've developed, starts from the requirement of SERPs, but puts some additional requirements in place which we believe are appropriate for a major turnaround, and also clarifies those requirements for a major turnaround situation. So if you take the example of a leak test, where you've got a running plant and I've taken a pump off and I've done some work on that pump, then the leak test is clearly that pump. You know, that's all you can leak test, and that's very clear. When you're in a major turnaround and the whole plant has been brought down, it's less clear what the extent should be. So hence, it is absolutely consistent with SERPs, but it goes above and beyond that for the large-scale TARs that we're currently seeing.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Another question there.
Hi, thanks. Phil Brunton from Shell. Question for Keith. It's quite a refreshing viewpoint that you've taken to deliver the message on the key message on safety with regards to the football approach. What have been the next steps that you've taken to really build on that message that you've delivered there and sustain?
The next step really is to follow up to make sure that that some of the goals we set out really around the awareness. Because as I set out, the goal was to improve the awareness of our workforce around what it means with regard to hydrocarbon awareness. Probably the next thing, and then one of the other presenters talked about, you know, barriers. You know, one of the things in our business, it is all around barriers. And in fact, I mean, we work closely with Shell and some of the things going on around process safety. You know, there's a lot of discussions around that. So I see an extension of this into how do we link it with the discussion around process safety and barriers. Again, it's a continued vocabulary lesson for our teams, but so they can see that and classify the incidents and make sure that we're being effective in the incident follow-up. So I think even as I spoke this morning, I was saying, you know, what part of our incidents are temporary connections? Are we following up on that? Are they respectful of barriers? So I think it's just a continuation to make sure that the incident follow-ups and the education and our competency is achieving that goal to improve awareness. So.
Thanks, Keith. Any other questions? I have one actually. It's kind of for Peter, so apologies, but we'll maybe go down. We'll maybe go down the whole table, because one of the things you mentioned was about let's say the off-site pump that was refurbished, and that reintroduction of, let's say, third-party OEM equipment, and you're inheriting, let's say, bolted connections in a package. Do you actually specify, let's say, competent standards for that work, or are you relying on your supplier to operate that to let's say, any standard? And I'm thinking about, you know, the industry MGI stuff, that mechanical joint integrity that Geoff presented yesterday or earlier about flanges and things. But do we actually roll that down into our supply chain effectively, so that people working on this equipment that we are bringing onto our assets are working to the same standards as we expect for our own personnel? Huge question. Apologies.
It's an enormous question going somewhat out with my area, so there may be others in the room who are better placed to comment. I think it's absolutely an area we can do a lot more. Okay. Within the turnaround group in BP, we rely very heavily on the federal contracts and that relationship that BP builds up with our suppliers to ensure that the product we get is to a high quality. And we rely on the contractual requirements and quality assurance that goes into those federal arrangements. That said, I think there is an opportunity for us to improve and develop turnaround-specific quality plans. And that's certainly an area we're looking at actually for the Bruce Tar next year, is to develop a bespoke quality plan to see what we should and must do over and above BP's normal requirements to ensure that all aspects of the tar have the appropriate quality. So very good question, I think, quite insightful. I don't think we've got an ideal answer to it yet. I think there's more work to be done.
Okay, thanks. Geoff, would you like?
Yeah, Les, if I could just build on the supply chain question, I think one of the emerging themes that we're seeing in my business in 2013 is that valves that are being either supplied as new from a valve supplier, manufacturer, and sent offshore and installed, tested and then we find a problem with a grease port on a valve that should have been tested onshore, and the certification says that it's all been tested onshore. We find a problem with it. Or a valve that's been tested and sent offshore, we're unable to achieve a test at site. Now, we've had 3 occasions at least this year, and perhaps it's as many as 5. We have a monthly hydrocarbon release steering group meeting, which I chair, and took place yesterday. Gary Begg is our team leader for hydrocarbon release elimination at Talisman Sinopec. That's an emerging theme that we have. We're going to look more deeply into the issue that appears to be emerging, and we'll be sharing that at the Asset Integrity next steering group meeting that we have. But I just wanted to share that as an emerging issue that I'm seeing. The quality of work done by valve suppliers is sometimes not as good as the certification suggests, and that's a worry that we have, and we're looking into it.
Steve, is there anything you want to pick up from a Petrofac perspective on that, or Kenny?
The challenge is where you've got OEMs, and you trust the OEMs typically, and you think, well, these are the guys who built the kit originally, you sent it back to them for repair. We have had instances where the repaired kit hasn't met the specification, hasn't been able to perform, or has had issues mechanically. And then there's the threat or the opportunity to go to a qualified, authorized repairer, and do they meet the specification? And then there's the guys who are out there who can provide the service quickly, but if you don't provide them with the right certification, the right model, the QA standard they've got to meet, then you're laying yourself open for trouble. So it's about managing the supply chain, it's about the quality checks, using authorized vendors who've got robust mechanisms in place. And how do you prevent them slipping through the net? Well, there are times when you've got to send people to the factory to visually inspect and check. And that applies to everything from fire and gas systems to mechanical pieces of kit, because they're equally a threat in terms of how it might perform and cause you failures in the field.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Kenny?
I think maybe just building on that from a Petrofac perspective, we are having a challenge at the moment on whether we've got a robust enough integrity process for vendor skids. We've had a couple of incidents recently, and when we went back and checked our RBI system, we need to improve our system with regards to vendor skids. It's not just a black box, it's the pipe work within the skid. So that's a challenge that we are looking at the moment.
Okay. Thank you. Any more? Oh, one question. It's a race.
Yeah, hi. My name's Andrew Fife. I work for Shell. It's a question perhaps to the whole panel, but maybe particularly Kenny and Keith might particularly want to comment on this. There's some great ideas in safety presented today, and obviously they're the shortlist finalists, and clearly they've had success as well with what you've told us in terms of results. The challenge, I think, though, is there are many different people working at a facility typically, many different contractors, and you're working in the envelope of an operator as well. So my question really is, what are your reflections on trying to implement new ideas and making sure they're sustainably adopted and actually understood by people in the workforce who've actually seen many new ideas?
What comes to my mind is trying to keep it fresh. You know, one of the things that I see plagued is when I look at our core training elements and everything, it's just the same old stuff, and the people turn off. And constantly, as we're looking at our workforce, whether it's the new employees coming in or the more experienced ones, we have to keep making it fresh, whether that means new material, new conduits of getting the data and engaging them. But that's the challenge, is to keep it fresh so that they will be engaged. I think that's been the priority for us. It's great you have new programs, but we have to avoid having the theme of the month or the campaign of the week or whatever, because then they get to the point that then they turn off. Oh, it's the campaign of the week. So, this is, I don't know that answers your question, but that's the one thing we constantly ask ourselves. Can we step back? What can we do to make it fresh? Different media channels. I mean, interesting enough, in the last few days, we've been looking at digging into our behavior-based safety system that really isn't getting the information, the feedback that we want. And is that because of management and leadership? So we're actually looking at, an app for iPhones and for iPads and stations so that people can quickly enter their behavior-based safety information, something fresh. So when I look at our workforce changing, these are the things we're trying to keep up with. So don't know if that answers it, but those are the things on the tip of our next list.
Yeah, we're just starting the journey of rolling out our control of work new process, and I think it's vital that we get feedback, we change it. Agree with Keith, we've got to keep it fresh because we've had so many of these before, and it's a challenge that we've got an opportunity to gain feedback on an ongoing basis.
I'll just maybe add in terms of what we're trying to do in step change, because we are very, I guess, initiative driven, so to speak, and the reality is to do one or two things, but try and do them really, really well. And that's the clear direction from our leadership, so that even today you've heard control of work. Control of work isn't a new idea. The way that Petrofac are delivering it and that relentless pursuit of improvement is the value add. We have turnarounds and shutdowns from BP. But that, again, it's a perennial issue, and yet that relentless pursuit. So it isn't about creating new ideas, it's new delivery mechanisms and actually focusing on one or two things: commitment, leadership, and that long-term adoption and implementation. Certainly apps and Facebook and all these other things are part of engaging an ever younger workforce. And that's a challenge for some of us in the room, particularly me. But the reality is that that's where we have to be. We have to embrace the technology and continue to develop an ongoing dialogue with our workforce. And these tools are there to do that. Any other questions?
Just to build on that, Les, there's a number of things running in step change that all fit together, and it's part of the landscape. And workforce engagement that Les mentioned, we have a whole program which I hope everybody's aware of that Ian Sharp from Fairfield's been leading. And this is about how engaged are we with the workforce, and doing it on a platform basis, doing it on a shift basis. Are they listening? Are they engaged? What kind of reaction are you getting from them? Is it working? Are they a team? What aren't we doing right as leaders? And we've had some pretty transparent results already from the pilots, and that's now being rolled out this summer. And I would encourage everybody to participate in that as duty holders and operators. And it will give us a picture of the industry. And it really is a powerful tool, and there's been a big investment made in it by Oil and Gas UK and Step Change. So it's out there, and I've been involved in a couple of pilots and some quite intuitive responses, that I think can help build the greater landscape of the communication piece.
If I could add one, as they were speaking, one of the things that comes to my mind, and it's a bit of a plug for some of the things that Steps Change doing, and it might be seen as a criticism of some of the operators. One of the challenges from the service company's point of view is every operator we go to has a different program. So if I send a crew to Shell one day, Talisman the next, and then somebody else the week after that, we've got our house rules, we've got life-saving rules, we have golden rules, so they're going through these different things. So I embrace what Step Change is trying to do to make an industry standard, whatever that might be. And I honestly think that the house rules, golden rules, life-saving rules might be on the verge there, so that we all don't have, I've got 5 cards in my wallet, which one are we going to use today? Those types of things help our workforce, because they turn off when there's too many different things, I think. That's just one more thing. So.
Okay. Oh, one last question here, thanks.
It's Geoff Housen from BP. It's really going back to the last question, keeping things fresh. One of the freshest things I've picked up today since I was last here at the Step Change is the interaction with the workforce. That is a good way of keeping it fresh. A lot of the answers to the challenges we have are actually on the rigs, on the platforms. It's just taking that information, sprucing it up and giving it back in good presentations. Obviously the video, excellent. That would go down a treat at safety meetings, whatever rig. We've got BP using a new technology and improving the flare camera and getting them involved, and obviously the toolbox talk with Petrofac. That is a really important tool that if used fully can help cure a lot of problems. So I'd just like to say that the freshest thing I've heard is the interaction with the workforce.
Good. Thank you. Okay, folks, I'll just absolutely bang on time, 10:15. Can we break for 30 minutes for some tea and coffee? And can I have you back in your seats, if at all possible, at 10:45, please? Thank you.